All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m., so we are going to convene the board meeting. We did have an earlier administrative workshop, so we took a short recess, and now we're convening the actual board meeting part of the agenda. In accordance with South Carolina Code of Laws, 1985, Section 30-4-80-E, the following have been notified of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting: the Fort Mill Sun, the Herald, the Charlotte Observer, CN2, and WRHI. If I could ask, please, if you join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And we'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for joining on what is our last scheduled meeting of 2020. We are all ready to say goodbye and good riddance. We will be joined in just a little bit by Dr. Frateroli. He has a conflict for the first few minutes. The agenda that was provided, I do want to make one quick amendment. We are going to eliminate item 8.02, review of district report card. We've had just a quick emergency that has come up, and Mr. Roaring is not going to be able to join us today, so we are going to take that off and do it at our next scheduled opportunity. With that in mind, are there any other adjustments to the agenda? All right, then we will take that as approved with unanimous consent as amended. Starting off then, item 5.01, we've got some special recognition. Would you like to do that?
I'll step to the podium if that's okay. Come on up, Jason. On the agenda, you can see that we're recognizing Nation Forward High School, got to get my high school straight, tonight for being a Blue Ribbon School winner. And I'm going to let Jason talk a little bit about what that means, but I can tell you and the public and all those listening, it's really a huge honor for our district. Fort Mill High won it a couple of years ago. Gold Hill Elementary won it back in several years ago. And it's based on several things, but just to give you some backdrop, only 535 schools in the country receive the award, and there's thousands of schools, hundreds of thousands of schools in all 50 states, and this is private schools are included in the count. It's based largely on several factors: academic achievement as a total, the closing the achievement gap, but we're just so pleased and honored tonight that we had a school, I think, on a 5 in the state this year, and I'm going to let Jason accept the award on behalf of the school. But let's give Jason and his team a nice round of applause. She's going to get a picture, but then you can say it.
Oh.
They didn't hear that.
Thank you, Dr. Epps. I think it's important to recognize that this is not just a school thing. This really represents our whole district. It represents the hard work that our elementary school principals, our middle school principals, and those teachers, the foundation that they set so our students can achieve at such a high level and do all the really neat things and amazing things they do at the high school. So it may say one school in here, but this is really a Fort Mill thing. So, and it starts at the top with Dr. Epps' leadership and your support. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Epps.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Item 6.01, approval of the minutes from November 17th board meeting. If anybody did see that there was a second version that came out, we had a Mr. Bolden over here, so only one Mr. for you. Okay. I think Pat's already made that adjustment. Any other corrections or adjustments? All right, then that will stand as approved. Do we have any public participation? We do not. Okay. Then we're going to get right into some important business, starting with a special report having to do with our Hall of Fame inductees. Former board member Mr. Patrick White is going to come up and do that for us. Mike Hill was not able to join us tonight, so come on up, Patrick. We hadn't seen you in a while.
We don't recognize you either.
Well, I bring you greetings from the Hall of Fame committee. That committee is made up of Mike Hill, who leads that effort, myself, Scott Patterson, Rudy Sanders, Mayor Gwen Savage, Jeff Updike, Dr. Epps, and we get all of our support from Jenny, and she works the hardest on the whole committee. We just have to come together one time a year. This is I believe this will be the 5th class of the Hall of Fame. You know, there's several ground rules that we operate under that were approved by the board back in 2015-ish or 14, before that first episode or first class went in. You know, some of them are anybody that's have to be retired or gone from the district for up to 3 years. Then after that, it's pretty much open to, you know, we take submissions by nomination forms. We publicize that on social media and in media outlets, asking people to nominate. Then also we kind of look back, and if you think about it, a school district that reaches back as far as ours with so many new people, you know, somebody that was a teacher, principal 40, 50 years ago, there's not many people that remember them. So there's part of a research arm of that group, and that's kind of why we've got Mike, and I think everybody on that committee is also is involved in some way with the Fort Mill History Museum. So there's some looking back. If you remember last year, we had Daddy Potts was one, and he was, I believe Clemson, actually was in the first Clemson National Championship. And we had no idea who he was until they did some research and brought that back. So without further ado, this is we have a list this year that we think is equally as impressive as in years past. There are 5 nominees, and with your permission, I'd just like to go through and read each one so that I don't leave anything out. The first one is Robbie. Might need these. Some things have not changed. My eyesight has not gotten better. Bobby Semerald Player. Bobby Player had a passion for music, and during his spare time in the military, he would practice his clarinet or saxophone. After military service, Mr. Player served as high school band director at George Fish School. He required students to play John Philip Sousa, Beethoven, and Tchaikovsky, helping the students in the band become known around the state as the famous George Fish Band. Although uniforms could not be purchased for the band students due to the lack of funds, Mr. Player was the first director to insist on a uniform style of dress for this group. There's going to be a theme that starts here, especially those that have been around for a while. The second nomination is John DeLoach. The Fort Mill marching bands are said to have gotten its competitive direction from John DeLoach. He was kind of the first one that brought competition into marching band in Fort Mill. He began the competitions with Fort Mill High School Band in 1972 on a state level. Under his leadership, the band earned its first state championship in marching band and its first superior rating at a concert festival. Third nominee, and continuing the theme of music in the band, is Terry Holliday. Terry Holliday was hired by Fort Mill High's director of bands in 1981, the beginning of his 13 years in the Fort Mill School District. After a successful run as director of bands, he moved into the assistant principal position and later became principal at Fort Mill High, where he was responsible for leading the school through the transition to computerized grades, records, and communication. After leaving the Fort Mill School District, Mr. Holliday served several districts as superintendent before becoming the Commissioner of Education for the state of Kentucky. So he's basically their Molly Spearman. And I believe he has since retired, hasn't he, Chuck? With that, we will leave the band motif, and we have 2 incredible teachers to recognize. The first one is Ms. Susan Palmer. Ms. Palmer was a teacher in the Fort Mill High Schools from 1976 until 2010, serving at Fort Mill Middle School and later Fort Mill High as an algebra, pre-algebra, and geometry teacher. And Fort Mill Middle School, also known as A.O. Jones, where she taught me. After seeing students struggle in Algebra 1, she worked to create a better way to prepare students for success in the course. This resulted in the Masteries Algebra program, a new way of delivering the course to her students at Fort Mill High School and schools around the state. Her success with the new curriculum resulted in dropping the failure rate in the class from 30% in the first year down to 0%. And it's kind of unique with Miss Palmer that I had her as a teacher, and she was, I think it was 6th or 7th grade, but then the masteries program, I had lived here long enough that my students participated in that program. And then our last nominee is certainly not the least, is Miss Patty Barron. Miss Barron taught for 35 years, primarily as an 8th grade English teacher at Fort Mill Middle School, also the junior high school. She enjoyed being part of all school activities, including ticket collecting, cheerleading sponsor, student school advisor, academic team sponsor, and more. After retirement, she heeded a call from a local principal in need, returning to the classroom in the 2000s when enrollment spiked at Gold Hill Middle School. And Madam Chair, that concludes our list of nominees, and then I'll take any questions you have, and if not, we would hope that y'all would approve this slate of nominees.
Questions or comments? I think I'm starting to feel really old that three of those were my teachers as well. It used to be that these Hall of Fame people were from well before my time, but not so much anymore. 3 good ones of the 5. Any other comments, questions? I don't think we have it set to formally vote to approve, but obviously we accept the recommendations from the committee.
We would ask that you, even though we didn't make it an action item, that you approve it, because the bylaws state that it needs board approval. So that'd be, if y'all would approve them, that would be helpful.
Okay. I don't,
So, can
we don't
add an action item?
I'll say it won't be a,
Okay.
it won't be a formal action item approval, but I mean, I think we can say, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we certainly do approve
Absolutely.
them. If we need to clean it up from a bylaw standpoint or whatever, we can put it on a future agenda, but certainly,
I think we're good.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you so much. And we'll work to figure out when the ceremony's
Yeah,
gonna
the
be and
committee,
all that.
Patrick mentioned a music theme. We're really excited about this group, certainly a stellar group, but we think we'll do something probably at Fort Mill High in the spring when it gets prettier, and involve the band and be a special event, so.
I'm hoping I have the opportunity to break my rifle out again. Maybe? All right, we'll see. All right, thank you very much.
Thank y'all very much.
Christy, down the line, can we make that a formal action item?
I'm sorry, what?
Down the line on the next agenda, can we make that a formal action item?
We can.
Since, because I don't want to add an action item after
We
the
can't
meeting has
add
already
anything
started.
official to this one, but yeah,
Yes.
we can add that
Thank
later.
you.
As I mentioned, we are going to skip 8.02, and we'll move straight into the staff report for our financials from Ms. Lordo.
Okay, good evening. Tonight in your packet, we have included the monthly financial report for October, 4 months into the fiscal year. Once again, it's another month, hopefully the last, of using our fund balance from a cash flow standpoint until our property tax revenue begins to come in. Total revenues year to date were $32,242,981. Total expenditures, $45,360,238. I did go back and look at where we were from a cash flow standpoint for the same period last fiscal year, and we were at a decrease of 12.2 compared to 13.1. So we're right on target with the increase in our overall school budget this year, as I would expect to see for October 31st. One key revenue item that I did want to point out that you may have seen that starts coming in October is the Act 388 Tier 3 payments. That is spread over 10 months of the fiscal year, and it begins in October. So we received $1,770,889. That is our Tier 3 Act 388. That is the replacement money from the state, since we do not collect property tax from homeowners for operations. It starts in October. Other than that, I did not have any other items related specifically to October, unless you have any questions about that month. I have a few other things.
Just two real quick.
Okay,
I
sure.
noticed it looks like property taxes have kind of caught up and
A little bit.
exceeded last year, but
Well,
current year.
just to one thing I look at, and knowing last year, for those of you who are on the board, if you recall, the property tax billings went out late at the county level last year. They did go out in October this year. So we did see a little more of real property revenue, property tax come in this year compared to last year. I think a lot of it is because of that, even though a lot of people, wait toward closer to December 31st to pay their property tax. So I really expect to see a larger increase in November, and then a much bigger increase hopefully in December on property tax.
I noticed that tuition and other local revenue is down a little bit. Is that we have a
Tuition,
less
generally, what we try to do is we try to bill for those tuition pay, and we only have about a dozen. We try to bill those the first week of school, right when school starts, and time that with the start of school. And then usually we see a pretty quick turnaround on those tuition payments coming in. So that's not anything that's spread out over the year. We try to go ahead and get those in as soon as possible. And if someone hasn't paid within 30 days, we'll follow up with them.
And so is that
for
just we
payment.
have less participants this year versus last year?
We could have just had one or two that fell off. I'd have to go back and look. We could have had 14 or 15 last year versus about a dozen now.
Thank you.
We haven't, I don't recall that we had a large increase in the number of tuition paying students. Very small for us. Impact fees, total collected, we're now at $34,019,999. That's just such an odd number. That's as of close of business yesterday. It is 1,363 single-family units and 766 multifamily units, or a total of 2,129 units. I did look at November, very consistent with October. We had 45 new homes and 19 apartments that came on. And I did want to remind you and the public that we do have our impact fee hearing set at the Supreme Court level for Wednesday, January 13th at 10:30, and we do believe that that will be streamed. But we have not received any additional information regarding that since the last meeting.
But
On
it's still
impact
trickling in
fees.
about $1 million a month.
It's trickling in. It's trickling in. At the last board meeting, I reported to you that the federal government had extended the student nutrition free breakfast lunch meal program. We had made application. We have since been approved. So we are extending the meals for offering for breakfast and lunch for all students through the end of the school year. And I briefly saw our November counts this afternoon, and they look very positive. As I had reported for October, we're continuing to see our families take advantage of that, which is great.
Leanne, we used to say through the end of the year, or until the money runs out.
Well, you're correct.
So is it still or until the money runs out?
It is still until the money runs out,
Okay, but we don't have
but
any reason to believe that
correct.
it's going to end any sooner.
We have not received any notification. I think we're just hopeful, since they have now taken the initiative to extend it, that they feel like they will have enough to go through this school year.
Okay.
Ms. Lordo, in addition to this being a huge benefit to certain families, all of the families in our district, we actually are encouraging and want every student, if they can, to participate in this program because
Absolutely.
it helps the funding of the program, right?
Absolutely.
How does that work?
As well as the virtual students can also take advantage of this, because we do a meal pickup once a week at one of our sites. I want to say we do it at Nation 4, but I might not be correct about that. But we do a pickup once a week that virtual students, 100% virtual, or the AB students on their alternating days would be entitled to pick up meals for those alternating days.
And it's regardless of financial.
It is
condition?
regardless of financial condition. We just report to the federal government the meal counts. We have to report breakfast and lunch separately, and we receive the reimbursement. There's a specific meal rate reimbursement that we receive that does cover the cost for us.
And why is that a benefit to our department, our meals department?
It is a benefit because they are completely self-funded. They're not part of the general fund. It's a self-funded program. So we have established our budgetary expenditures based on staffing our cafeterias for the full year. So we incur those personnel costs, just like everything else. It's personnel and meal cost. The meal cost, we fluctuate depending on the number of meals served, but the personnel cost is fixed based on our contracts. So we're going to incur those monthly costs, and we are hopeful that our revenues coming in from the meals will offset, so that our goal is to break even at the end of the year. We're not trying to make a large profit on this. The goal is just to maintain enough revenue coming in that we can break even to operate the cafeterias.
If it didn't break even, that would go back to the general fund balance?
It could, yes.
So by participating in the free program, we're actually helping the
Absolutely.
district break even on the program.
And to be able
Absolutely.
to maintain the level of staffing, right?
Correct,
Because
correct.
it makes sense that if people are not eating in the cafeterias, we wouldn't need necessarily as much staff, and so we want to be able to maintain the level of staff that we
Correct,
have.
correct. And we have, we've truly, Tammy has done a great job with her staff this year in trying to keep the staffing as low as we can, just not knowing how to anticipate with the situation, with the pandemic, and how parents would feel about that, with the meals and how we were going to operate the cafeterias this year. So we tried to keep our staffing at a level that was not in excess. We've had some vacancies we haven't filled. We're trying to make it through this year. But it takes a lot of labor hours, especially to pack all those meals for pickup. Takes a lot of labor hours.
Might be something you don't think of initially, but the nutrition department is one that was heavily impacted by different procedures and policy changes. So
Absolutely.
thank you to the nutrition department staff and everything they've done
Yes.
to keep that program rolling.
Thank you for recognizing them.
Well, and
I'll pass that along.
I think your point is, it has been, and it's been appreciated as a benefit to many in our community, but I think to the extent that we make sure that everybody knows that it is not a needs-based program. It really
Correct.
is an opportunity for anyone to get, the meals, breakfast and lunch through the schools. I think we can continue to highlight that.
Absolutely.
I'm still aiming though to bring back the rectangle pizza though. Just,
I'll pass that along. I'll pass that
nostalgic.
along.
It's wonderful.
And then the last financial issue that I wanted to mention, I have seen now, you probably saw that the House reconvened and had an organizational meeting over the past week. They have set their budget calendar, which, as you know, the state budget starts with House Ways and Means. So we watch that very closely. Right now, some of their targeted dates, they will hold their subcommittee meetings the week of February 9th, but the House Ways and Means full committee will meet the week of February 16th. That's really key, and that's where I will get the first indication of what I think they may do with the teacher salary scale, which governs a lot of our money, and then how we proceed with the budget plan based on what the House Ways and Means, so that'll be February 16th. The full House, though, will not debate the budget until March the 8th. But generally, House Ways and Means, they write the budget, and it's very unlikely we'll see significant changes when it goes to the full House. But that's just to give you an idea. We probably won't have a lot of information to share with you until around the beginning of March. Of what's going to happen with the budget. But it's good to see they have a calendar now, and we know the dates we'll be working with and how that will affect our budget plan.
And Leanne, that's for the 21.
122.
Any indication on anything changing with respect to the current, the continuing resolution? that we're
I'm told
operating
they are going to operate under the continuing resolution through this year and will not make any formal budget changes that would affect us. Now, that could certainly change, but that's what I'm hearing.
Okay.
But we'll be watching it closely. when they come back in session in January. Okay? Any other monthly financial questions?
All right, keep going.
Okay. The next item that I have put on the agenda is an action item. This is related to, there has been a lot in the media, I guess over the last 2 weeks regarding the Santee Cooper nuclear project settlement. And I'll be honest, this was truly a surprise for us when Dr. Epps got the phone call from Paul Basha at York Electric. We had all read things about this and heard about this as this class action lawsuit's taken place, but did not really understand that this would end up being a benefit to us in the form of a check. We received a payment of $266,000, $266,508. And in simplest terms, this is due to York Electric is a customer of Santee Cooper. And Santee Cooper and SCANA basically, during the understanding about 10 to 15 years this project has taken place with the plan to build 2 additional reactors, they had an increase in the rates to set aside funds to pay for these projects. And when these projects became evident, these projects were not going to be completed, and this class action lawsuit began, then the discussion centered around the fact that they had collected higher rates from their customers. So York Electric was a customer. So York Electric received this payment, and they are passing it along to their customers, and we are a customer because of our multiple schools that use York Electric. Does that sort of make sense?
And the same
In
is
simplest
with
terms.
residents throughout
Correct.
throughout the area, right? A lot of residents.
A lot of
some up
residents,
here have
yes.
received checks as well. So
Yes,
I was
correct.
one of those.
Clarification, not all schools.
Not all
Provide-
schools receive service under this, but the majority of our schools do. So we were,
To be clear, the individual checks Ms. Spears is referring to weren't near any of that 200.
they were not nearly that. No, they were not nearly that amount. But we were very excited on the day that we got that phone call, and we were even more excited when I saw the check. I made a copy of the check, going to keep it. But
Yeah,
as
there's a lot of discussion about whether these checks were legit when they started showing up
Well-
in people's mailboxes.
well,
So when
exactly.
you get a $266,000 check, like, can I really cash this, baby?
well, and then when we got the phone call, I kept saying, "No, when are we going to get the money? Is this like soon or next year or So it was a very quick process. And as we began discussing, okay, there's so many things that we could do with this, so many needs. How do we need to use these funds? It's certainly something above and beyond our budget plan. We had also been, throughout this fall, so many times, people have said certain staff are just working well above and beyond. I mean, so many things have had to happen to operate school this school year, and a lot of that we share with you, a lot of that we haven't shared. Just so much has happened at the school level, the district office, across the board. And we've seen a lot of our surrounding districts are doing things for their employees to recognize them. And we said, oh my goodness, wouldn't this be a great way to thank our staff, to pass this along to them in the form of a payment? And that's kind of why we came up with the idea to bring to you. And in doing the calculations, we calculated that we can make a payment of $150 to every staff member. That's every full and part-time. So it's 2,161 checks. We're proposing to actually gross that up for the taxes so that every employee would get a check for $150. If you would support us and approve that.
This will be in the December check just in
Correct.
time for Christmas if you approve tonight.
We're going to actually plan to, if you approve this, we're going to run it separate. And we would run this on December 21st.
And this is in addition to, we do this with our employees because we appreciate the effort. This is in addition to the step increase we provided at the beginning.
Correct.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. 90% of our budget is staff. That's really, what makes the district run. So the district received a windfall. Seems like that's where it should go. So.
I think everyone would be very appreciative and thankful, and it would just be a great way to say thank you for all the effort that you've put in, that we've recognized all your effort that it's taken for us to operate school this fall.
And would you please clarify which employees would be getting these?
It is
That you're
all
recommending that they get?
what we call a permanent employee. It would not include it would not include like substitutes, but we have already increased our sub rate for them and offered them an additional payment for subbing for a certain number of days during the month. So it would include, though, all what we call a permanent employee, full or part-time.
So it'd be, full-time would be anybody with benefits,
Correct.
right? And then the part-time would be which?
Cafeterias, school
It's
bus
teachers,
drivers.
cafeterias,
Perfect.
bus
Okay.
Right.
drivers,
Everybody.
district
Perfect.
office,
Right.
the whole shooting match. Maintenance.
It's every employee that's employed with us.
That gets a
Yes, correct. Correct.
You said that was how many employees?
2,161.
That's awesome.
That is. So I-
Fantastic, idea. Thank you. Y'all have seen it. We have seen it on a small scale. Each one of us is impacted by a teacher in one way or another, and we've seen it. We've seen what they've been going through. We've heard it from the students about what the students are going through and how the teachers are helping our students, right? Get through those trying times. I don't know that any function within the school district that the pandemic has not modified or changed in one
And
way or the other.
we had honestly, we had been talking about this and thinking through it, but we really just couldn't determine how to fund it. And then this happened. Yeah.
And that was part of the reason I asked the question about the budget before is I am thrilled that we were able to do the step increase. And I'm, I guess, frankly, a little disappointed that it sounds like the state may not come through for all those other districts out there that didn't go ahead and do it. I'm glad that we did and we made the right decision, not waiting around for the state because, lo and behold, it was the right thing to do for our employees. But even above and beyond that, this is the, 2020 has been a tough year. We're 16 weeks in, something like that, with everybody just figuring out. So, I think it's awesome.
Great, thank you.
And it's a small amount, but
Right.
it's a big amount too. It's a small token for everything that's going on,
I think it has large meaning.
but I think it has huge meaning and huge impact. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the administration to use our Santee Cooper lawsuit windfall and award that back to staff as a bonus.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to use our Santee Cooper windfall towards a staff bonus. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you very much, and
Motion carries, and
we're going
congratulations,
to
employees.
send out notification to all the employees this evening from you. So, thank you.
Sweet, sweet, sweet.
Thank you.
All right, we do have a couple other action items as well that won't be nearly as exciting as that, but 10.02, approval of local board courses, Dr. Michael Wakesness.
They might be somewhat exciting, but you're definitely right, not quite as exciting as that. So, good evening. And if you recall, last year, those of you that were here last year, we did an update of the program of study, a pretty comprehensive one. And one of the parts we did involved reapproving the local board approved courses. So the vast majority of courses in our high schools are state approved courses like English 1, 2, 3, all your typical courses. But we also have a slate of local board approved courses that you guys or the board at the time had approved to offer to our students. And each year we are required to get approval to offer them the following year. So none of these courses on the screen are new or in your packet are new. These are courses that we've been teaching for most of them for quite some time. Last year we added a few of those, but there are not any new ones. So one thing I do want to point out, though, is High School 101. We are proposing we would like to modify it a bit. And right now, all of our students are required to take High School 101. It's a great course. We do things like study skills in it. We do comprehensive health education, which is a state requirement, and things that are valuable for our students. The vast majority of our kids take it in the 9th grade year. Sometimes when students move in to our school district, of course, they're not freshmen. They might come in as a sophomore, junior, or senior, and it leads to situations where you might have a class full of freshmen and one senior in it. And sometimes our schools were feeling that wasn't always the best use of the very limited time in an upperclassman schedule to have them do High School 101. So the high school principals, we've been talking about this for a while, and we thought this would be a good time to go ahead and make the move with High School 101, where it'll still be required for all freshmen. But if students come to us after their freshman year, they would have the option of taking a health course virtually, because they still have to take the comprehensive health education. And now with our, well, not now, but it's so much easier with our partnership with Virtual SC. They can take the course through Virtual SC, a health course, satisfy their requirements, and still have some openings in their schedule that would not be available to them having to take High School 101.
So Dr. Wakesness, this health course that they would be taking in lieu of that, is that a full semester course or is it more of like an abbreviated course?
It's a full semester course, but since it would be through Virtual SC, they could do it on their own time at home, or they could do it in the school if they wanted to go into the lab and take it every day like it's a regular class. I would think most of the students would probably want to do it on their own time to get it out of the way, but it is a full semester, but they would be able to do it, you know, they would have some wiggle room, I guess, in how they actually do the course.
So if they chose to take it as a normal course, it would be one of the 8 courses that they took that year, right? One of the 8 blocks.
Right.
If they chose to do it virtually as a separate, I just want to make sure that we have whatever we need in terms of tracking to be able to assure that it's been completed in time so that they don't get up to graduation and you know, especially if it's a senior year kind of a thing.
Right.
And not have all the requirements that are needed from the state.
Yeah, as soon as if they came in as a 10th grader, when they were doing their IGPs, it would be recommended that they take that health course that first semester or second semester, whichever year they get here. So our counselors each year, you know, when they have the IGPs with the students, they review all that. So the state requirement that High School 101 covers is the comprehensive health, which is part of the health course. So that would be the only state requirement that they would have to cover outside of the class.
What happens when a senior moves in March?
In March,
I'm
if they did not have health, they would probably do health through Virtual SC. And then it depends on the situation if they would take High School 101.
I've got to believe at some point, you know, that occasionally
Right.
happens, or probably other courses if they move in the senior year, and then there's something else from another state that.
And it depends if they come from a school that has the block schedule like we do.
Right.
Some schools are year-long courses and they take 7, so that's always a challenge for the counselors to figure that out. So it really just depends on the specifics.
Right. But you've got a mechanism to make sure that
Yes.
we don't get sideways with someone accidentally not being ready for graduation.
So I have, I guess, a couple questions for it.
Okay.
The first one being that because we as a district require High School 101, we're kind of giving a pass to anybody that didn't start here where that requirement is concerned. Is that going to require a board policy amendment and adjustment because of, first of all, my belief and my feeling is probably yes. And then I guess my second component to it is, and I'm not saying that I'm not in favor or supportive of it, but my question or concern is that if we're requiring it of our freshmen and or of students to graduate from our district, and we're putting in this alternate, take a class outside of your normal block of 4, are we kind of short citing our freshmen that we have that started here by requiring them to take it and not allowing them to take the High School 101 as a virtual SC class.
Well, I think, well, two things. The first part, I do not believe it's in policy. It is in an administrative rule to the graduation requirement, so it's not actually in the policy of the class. And we thought about that with GPA, like how would this impact the GPA? Because that's very important to lots of people. There's lots of money tied to it for scholarships. And at first we thought, well, yeah, that wouldn't be fair because our freshmen that are here, they're having to take a CP level class. But when the students take the health class through virtual SC, they're taking a CP class. So it's still, like if you're looking at the GPA impact, it's still the same. Either they're taking High School 101 as a CP class or they're taking health as a CP class.
But they would take it as a 5th class, so it is actually a GPA potential booster.
It's a credit. It's an additional credit if you take it virtually.
Right.
It's really what it is, which may or may not be a credit, a GPA booster, depending on what you take for the additional course.
Right.
Right, yeah. So it would be, if that was a concern, then I guess a potential workaround, I guess, would be not allowing kids to take it on their own, having to take it in the lab at a school. So rather than making it at their 5th class for the semester, it would still just be their 4th class.
8 that they have in a year.
But if we're doing that, if we're making it one of their 4 for that semester, then kind of doesn't that defeat the purpose?
One of the hard parts that the schools say is having a class full of freshmen and then like 1 or 2 seniors mixed in with it. So I think the schools would say it would be worth it because for that to not have to have a class full of freshmen and then just 1 or 2 seniors mixed in.
My only other concern, Michelle, would be, Ms. Branning, would be that if somebody comes into our district late, like their junior year, they're from outside the state, there might be more core class requirements that they need than this one. So we want to make sure that they can get those core classes in.
Right.
You know, it's what class are we going to give up so that they can graduate and be prepared?
And typically, and I've not had firsthand experience because my kids were
Right, and mine too.
before high school when we transferred in, but my experience would tell me that those core classes would be the first ones that would be on that scheduled classes of what you're taking, and your electives would be on that short-sighted of, you're not gonna get that. Because you've gotta have the others to graduate and get on track for our state requirements.
They would be required to take health. That is one of the state requirements.
So whether it's through this or.
And right now, yeah, all of our kids get health through High School 101.
So this might actually help them to meet state requirements because they can take this in addition to their 4
Right.
courses that semester.
Yeah, so it would be very
Do that
beneficial if
5th
someone came to us behind.
Sure.
As an upperclassman.
Right, as an upperclassman.
Right. Credit is one thing, GPA is another. It does get factored into since they're taking it outside of our district, it does count toward GPA? Or
Yes, it would still count into their GPA. Yep.
'Cause I think that's the only place there was a rub.
So we are, the administration is recommending approval for these local board-approved classes, existing local board-approved classes.
Do we need to spell out including the,
Can we just say
ability
the list
to-
as submitted, or do you want each one named?
I think in the minutes, each course needs to be reflected. I don't think the High School 101 tweak we were talking about needs to be, for my purposes, it doesn't need to be in
we
there.
have to approve the local courses?
Right, yes.
Okay. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Last year, we did a couple new ones. Like, I know we did a Spanish dual credit. And I don't see it on here. Is that because it's not considered a local board course?
Correct. Yeah, so that is that is a course in the state course book, the dual credit Spanish and the French and all the other dual credit ones we offered.
So we added them to our offering, but
Yes.
they weren't locally approved.
Right.
Got it.
Yep.
What about that forensic science class that we added?
Same.
That's a state-approved course also.
Got it, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So the difference between the local board courses and the state-approved courses are, the local board courses are something that's unique to our district?
Correct. Yes. And they may offer something similar in other districts, but it's not in the state course catalog.
Okay.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
So, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the administration for local approved board courses being Transition Reading 1, Transition Reading 2, Film and Fiction, Transition Math 1, Transition Math 2, History of Sport, Model UN Debate, High School 101, Biology Pre-AP, U.S. History Pre-AP, Criminal Justice, Mock Trial, JROTC Leadership Lab 1, 2, 3, and 4, Creative Writing 2, Journalism Editor 4, Physical Education 4, 5, and 6, which is physical conditioning, and Middle School Theater Arts.
Second?
We have a motion and a second for the listed courses, local board approved courses. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so these continue to be locally approved board courses.
All right, thank you. So moving into the next, do you need to do that?
That's what I was
Okay,
saying.
sorry about that.
Yep, I was gonna say, so you're up for the next item, keep going.
Yes. All right, so before we get into the policy, I wanted to put this slide on the screen, and you may have seen this before. This is something that the state has created, diploma seals of distinction. And they've kind of been in the works, but they have, our students, no students in the state have been eligible for them yet. If you see in the top there, it says beginning with the 2018-19 freshman class. So these are the students that are graduating next school year. So these different seals of distinction from the state will be available for students across the state that qualify starting next school year. So they have multiple seals you can earn. There's an honor seal of distinction you see there on the left. There's a college-ready seal of distinction. There's different career seals, or there's a career seal of distinction based on their EEDA major, their IGP. And then also there are multiple specialization seals that you see in the very right-hand column. Students can earn one seal, they can earn two, or up to as many as they possibly can. They're not required to graduate. This is just an extra for students who go above and beyond. So this is exciting. This is coming from the state. This will be for students starting next school year. So that is a lead-in to one of our current board policies, which is policy IKF. Sorry, couldn't see. And this spells out the requirements for high school graduation. And we are going to recommend a change now that we have state seals of distinction. We would want to offer our students the state seals of distinction rather than our district diploma of distinction. So this, the first reading is on the screen there, but we would strike out the district diploma of distinction, not offer that anymore, and offer the state seals of distinction for our students. So the red part on the screen and in your packet would be the new verbiage for the policy, and then the strike-throughs on the bottom.
And like I said, this is a first reading today, so we will not be voting on it today, even though it's listed as an action item. We'll do it at our next meeting, right?
Okay.
For
Yes.
for the formal policy change. Can you put that back up again real quick? So just for clarification, if a student meets multiple criteria for different things, is it automatic? Is there something the student needs to do?
They have to apply for it.
Right. How does that work?
So that's a great question, and that's something we are waiting to hear from the state. They will be eligible to earn multiple seals. We do not know the process yet exactly how that will happen. We are hoping it's an automated process where it'll just automatically pop up in PowerSchool or somewhere saying these students qualify for these seals. We're hoping that happens. If not, then somehow the schools, the administration, the counselors, myself, we would have to come up with a way to determine who qualifies for those. So we're very hopeful that the state has a system to make that automated.
So out of curiosity, is there any, and I probably already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there any benefit to continuing to offer our district diploma of distinction in addition to the state diploma? Does it do anything?
I don't think so. I think this is a state-recognized seal that will kind of hold more water on a diploma or a college application. So it would be really difficult too, I think, for the school counselors to have to determine the state level ones and the district level ones. And the district level requirements are actually the same as the state ones.
That's what I was gonna say, how similar or different is that first column from what our diploma of distinction was?
Looks pretty spot.
The GPA is the same requirement. I would have to go through again and look at the other requirements, but the GPA requirement's the same, the 3.5.
Oh,
Okay. That's correct, yes, you're right.
and we didn't have world languages
I was just gonna say, yeah.
on that. I mean, we had it as a graduation requirement, but we didn't have it listed as part of our diploma of distinction.
So I think if you look at the college ready, the second seal on there, the GPA requirement's a little bit lower than ours, but the courses are more in line to what our district seal, district diploma of distinction has for its requirements.
Is it a physical thing, like a cord or a something or a pen or anything? Do we know yet?
No. We're hoping it'll be something that is, yeah, like a seal put on their diploma somehow. But then that's not set yet either, because some people from the state were saying that might look pretty crowded on a diploma if you earn 4 or 5 of them. So that's still to be determined by the state.
All right. Questions? Further discussion? I mean, hopefully you can get a few of those pieces of information fleshed out a little bit from the state. Did I do that? Okay, sorry.
Hopefully.
See, it seems to make sense that we move in the right direction. It would be great if we actually understood where that direction was
Right.
going a little bit more.
Yeah. Certainly. And I'll reach out to our state contact again on that before the next meeting to see where they are in the process and be able to
When
report
they may know more
back
or
to you.
whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you.
There was one other slide that
Yes.
this isn't an action item. I guess maybe I should have done this with the last one, but we wanted to bring to your attention that this year the State Department is granting districts flexibility on the weighting of the EOC exams on course grades. So as you may know, if you've had a high school student recently, you certainly know that students that take EOCs, that grade is 20% of their final course grade, and that's required by the state across the entire state. So this year, due to the pandemic, districts were given the flexibility to decide how they want to count the EOC exam in the final course. And we plan to have our EOC exams this year count for 10% of the course grade in our district for the fall and for the spring. So it's the same for the entire year for both groups of students. Our principals wanted to recognize that this is a different year and there's lots of challenges for our students, so we didn't think it was appropriate to have it count for 20%, but we did think it's important to have it count for something. It's going to be part of accountability down the road in the future, not this year, but we also wanted to make sure that our students were getting prepared for a college-like exam, so we came up with the 10% for our EOC exam grades.
And that is just for those courses that have EOCs? So
Yes.
all other traditional high school courses will still have their exam count as 20% of the grade?
However it was before, that's what it'll count, but I think typically that's 10% for most classes. Yeah, so now, and that's the other, yes, that's a good point, because that's how one of the other reasons they came to the 10% to make it even with the other courses, most other courses.
I think with students not being in school towards, the end of spring, and then knowing our high schoolers are on a hybrid model, I
Right.
think this is fair,
Right.
since they're not getting that face-to-face instruction every day as if, like they did last year. I think that's incredibly reasonable.
All right.
Yeah, so that's not an action item, but I assume will be communicated through the high schools at
Yes,
some
certainly.
near term.
Yes.
I know the exams are not until second week in January or whatever, so.
But we'll get that information out.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Epps, I believe you are up for a number of items.
Okay, my turn. All right, beginning with the calendar of events you have before you, obviously the board meeting tonight, a reminder to board members and staff, no second board meeting typically in December. Then on Monday, the 21st, we have the e-learning day scheduled, and also the work day on the 22nd. Remember, and I guess all of you have received your, what was it, an email or a sign up to help the staff move or whatever? Okay, so that'll be taking place over that weekend. Then, of course, the winter holidays, and we'll be caught up then on we'll have made up our missed day, which is good. You get on into January, we start back, excuse me, on the 4th, and you can see the list of meetings and the holiday, the Martin Luther King holiday on Monday the 15th. Now, I listed board retreat, and I don't know where y'all are with that. We talked earlier, board chair and I, about the retreat, and she was going to speak with all of y'all about possibly doing it something before the board meeting like we did last year. So I put to be determined.
And we may end up altering the time of the board meeting depending on what we do
Yeah,
with that
yeah.
schedule, so.
Just wanted you to get it on your calendars. That was the main
Yep.
reason. Then, of course, the teacher work day there on the 25th. Board members always ask, are there any other dates that I'm not, you know, the McCallum Scholarship Dinner is typically, Sue, you always
Right,
mentions
it's-
this. It's the
it's
fourth
about that-
Tuesday usually, so, but I hadn't heard anything this year, so I don't know.
We're not sure.
Doing it, not doing it.
We're-
Yeah, I don't know.
But just generally speaking, it's been a little bit harder for the foundation because they raise money, and they haven't been able to raise money. They didn't have their
Right,
golf tournament.
right.
But I do know that there's a committee meeting in early January, to get some of those things knocked out. And of course, I'll share those dates with everybody else once we have them.
Okay. I just mentioned it, but
Dr.
kind
Epps?
of reserve it on your calendar.
Dr. Epps,
Yes,
is it the 15th, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, 15th or the 18th?
is it wrong?
I'll tell you what I think.
I may have,
It is the 18th. You're correct.
well, let's celebrate on the 18th instead of the 15th then.
Let's do it.
Good catch. Good catch.
Just want to make sure, I want to make sure that,
Well, typically, the Friday is a work day. I guess that's,
It's not this year.
Yeah,
The
okay.
15th is a school day,
okay.
and it's an A day for the record.
if the kids are off, I'll need to make some arrangements.
That's right. Good catch. Good catch. Other days that, of importance that you might want mentioned. Okay. Moving ahead to the attendance update, we seem to be growing again each month. We're up another 35 kids this month. And I was going to ask Ms. McGinn a question off top. Last month we were up some. Do you think is this some of the kids coming back from the connections? Okay. So these are a little robust for typical growth during the year, but nothing we hadn't planned for and can't manage.
I don't know exactly how many were returners, but some of them were.
Yeah.
But every day I see another, hey, we're moving next week, and I need dentists and doctors, so I mean, there are definitely new groups coming as well.
But yeah, 14 at Kingstown and 10 over at Springfield.
Yeah.
Well, and just from a real estate standpoint, I mean,
Real estate has not
there is
slowed
no
down.
inventory, and the people that are moving here are buying things sight unseen and bringing their kids with them. So people are moving out that don't have kids or downsizing or whatever they're doing. And even a townhouse in my little subdivision, couple moves out, they've decided to upsize because they now have a dog. And the couple that moved in is, whatever they're doing, they've moved here from out of state and have brought 2 kids with them, so,
And $1 million at a time, they're building new ones,
Yeah.
because they can, so.
yeah.
And then the attendance winners, Fort Mill High, 96.19, Banks Trail Middle, 96.41, and Dobie's Bridge, 98, wow, .71. They all came to work.
Well, and again, back to our earlier conversation, and in a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so again,
Well, and that's one
kudos to
thing.
the attendance, right?
I looked at our numbers last year. Our numbers are very similar last year at this time with respect to attendance as they are now. So that's a very positive thing.
It is. Well,
To
we
see.
were, you know, I think there's something to that award we got. We're the best place in South Carolina. I mean, we do have a good, as far as work atmosphere, a good quality of work atmosphere, for lack of a better
And healthy
descriptor.
teachers.
Yeah, all right. So, yeah. All right, let's talk about the return to school plan update. I'll be glad when we get through this COVID and we can take that off the agenda. But it doesn't seem to be anytime in the near future. I'm gonna talk about 2 or 3 things. First of all, getting back to, the plan going forward is still to monitor and look at all the numbers. Hopefully get back second semester at middle and high, maintain the program at elementary as we are currently. As you know, the numbers are increasing across the county and the state. We've had some real challenges keeping the doors open in some schools. We have added on teacher substitute pay. We've done some incentives there, so we're a little better suited here to trying to. It's like I said last time, we're grinding our way through this thing. Let's get to Christmas. Hopefully, we've not had to shut a school down because of lack of staff, so that's a good thing. And people ask me, what are we going to do? Well, we'll know when we know. We'll review it every 2 weeks, starting in January, and 2 weeks later we'll review it. And if we don't get back when we say we want to get back second semester, we'll review it for the next 2 weeks. So that's kind of where we are as far as getting back face to face 5 days a week at the middle and high. We may have to turn in the other direction. You always have to hold that in your tool bag too. So that's kind of where we are. No different. I'm not looking at it any differently. I mean, that's the plan. That's the intended plan. So that's again about the same thing as last meeting. Questions? Yes.
Figure out this microphone thing to.
You got it on now.
Have you been aware of anything about, obviously, the vaccine will be prioritized to first responders, medical personnel. Of course, we have medical personnel also in our schools. Have you, and obviously teachers with access to a lot of students and staff. Have you heard of anything from the state that will hopefully prioritize the vaccine administration to our school staff, teachers?
That's the next thing I was going to talk about. Let me go ahead and talk.
Oh,
about
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, it's a good timely question. At the superintendent's meeting on Thursday, we were addressed by Dr. Traxler, the DHEC, head of DHEC, and she talked about that. She says they're preparing. There's preparations behind the scenes of so many sites, the first sites to get it in the state. And I think some of that's been in the press also. But it's her understanding. She didn't claim she had firsthand knowledge, but this is the closest thing I can get to what it will be. It's very similar to the what you're reading about nationally, where they'll start the first round with the healthcare providers and then go into the long-term care facilities. Teachers in North Carolina and South Carolina, at least in preliminary discussions, are in that second group. Now, there may be a 1A and a 1B, based on how many we get, how many doses and so forth. But yes, we're essential workers and we're in the upper group. Don't know exactly when that'll be, but she did share that much with us.
Thank you. Any form of advocacy that we can do as a community to help that determination?
It can't get here soon enough for me. And I'm sure that's probably true of all of you. But but it only makes sense that if the schools are open, a lot of things click if we can help safely open. So I would think, using that logic, we would be high on the priority list, the adults in the schools. Now, the vaccine is not for children yet, so we're talking because their rate of carry is not as high. But so we're talking about the teachers and the people who man and woman the schools.
And is that going to be decided by DHEC, or is it going to be decided by the legislature?
You talking political now. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I know in some of the things that I've followed and watched, there is an official definition of an essential worker. And the good news is that teachers are in it. But the bad news is it's a really broad definition. And so I think that's where DHEC and or the government has to is gonna have to decide, you know, the formal prioritization within essential workers, because it's everybody that works at a grocery store, a department store, maintains a power grid, work, you know, there's, it's a sanitation workers, I mean, it's a very broad, but there is an official definition. It's just a whole lot of other people. So I don't know who's gonna make that determination within the definition of essential workers as to who goes first.
That's it. So I think New York Times came out with a tool that you could actually plug in some information and get your place in line. And my wife being a teacher, me not being basically relatively the same health and relatively the same age, she was over 100 million places before me in line. So
don't think much
I'm not
lawyers
getting it, apparently. But I certainly hope that our teachers can have access to that. I didn't know if there's anything we could do advocacy-wise to help ensure that.
Well, if I hear, I agree with your sentiment, and if I hear of something advocacy-wise, I'll share it with everybody.
Molly actually mentioned it at some meeting that I've attended or listened in on, and talked about voicing that opinion, right, that preference. So,
And I think that was at our,
was it at the, I knew it was something, okay.
Question for you, Dr. Epps. A couple of them for you. First one is, would there be a reason why we don't have any representation, cumulative, on the dashboard?
Cumulative, okay. What we've done, and Joe, you can help me, we decided early, all districts' dashboards look different.
Sure, yeah.
We decided to just go with the current numbers and not do the cumulative. That was just an internal decision we made.
Well, I think from what I recall of the conversation, it was what happened in August is not necessarily relevant to the function
That
of the
was
school
it, how it would be
today.
perceived,
And
the
so-
higher number, how they would be perceived by the
So
folks.
we wanted to look at what's the current health.
Because they roll in and off of quarantine and, you know.
Sure. So the next question I have is, are the practices in how we handle the COVID consistent with all the schools? I know we have autonomy with our principals and all those things, but I'm curious, the practices, when we're exemplifying those at school A versus school B, are those?
Yeah, we do have autonomy, but not on this.
Yeah, so
Camera, you
I'm
and
curious.
Ray can speak to this. It's clearly, talk about it.
Yeah, they follow all the same protocols at each school. I don't know if you're referring to certain protocols as far as masks and stuff like that, or are you referring to
Notifications or what,
notifications, contact
cleaning, what,
More of the notifications, or when we're sending someone home. I'm just curious, are the practices the same? Okay.
our
Good question, but-
social media population.
Yes,
That's a
yeah,
contrary
for
social
sure.
media
Sure, correct.
Having been on the,
I'm sure there's, different admin have their own way of contacting.
Sure.
parents And how that conversation goes, but as far as how they contact Trace, who gets a letter for this, who gets a letter for that, who gets a phone call, that's all done the same at each school.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
I have a follow-up question. I know that we have some groups that over our winter break will be participating, like, for example, basketball teams and things like that. Do we have any protocols in place should there be a COVID concern or a COVID positive case, knowing that the district office normally is on break too, even though we have students involved in district activities?
I was gonna address rentals going forward, but I don't know if that's the question for this.
Are you referring to rentals, or are you referring to like?
No, sir, no. So the high school basketball team is playing on December 27th, and let's say I've got a kid on the team, or my husband's a coach or whatever. We know that we have a potential COVID case. So who do I call? If I'm a coach, so,
The Minute Clinic back
okay.
there.
yeah, so I think
And
the
then-
real question is all the tracking and all that still occurring and?
Yeah, I mean, we don't, Tamara and I have been kind of rotating weekends, like, because it is
Bless you.
overwhelming for Tamara
Yeah.
to
Oh,
Sorry.
absolutely.
Weekend, have to do that, so.
You take turns being on call, basically is what it is.
Just, we send an email out on Friday and say, if you have a COVID question, call this person. So it'll be the same with over the winter break. And we don't know the kids, well, I mean.
Right.
At some schools, but not all of them. So we rely on those administrators to, contact trace and say, hey, these kids were around this kid at the basketball game. And we rely on that, and then Tamara gets all of that information, and I don't want to speak for Tamara, but she sends those letters, and the admin calls the kids who need to be quarantined.
So in essence, over that winter break, nothing's different.
Nothing's different.
So if I'm a coach, I'm not out by myself, I just contact my AD or the principal, and then everything falls into place.
We'll send that out before the break to our admin, our assistant, our admin, and our nurses. Our nurses are doing a lot over the weekends too.
Okay.
And they've been working real hard, so it's really just, we'll send that out, what that schedule is, and they'll contact one of us.
Will we also be asking parents to keep us updated as cases occur over the holidays?
I would think so, just because depending on when it happens, it could affect
Their return.
their return. So.
Another question here, this is regarding the data. So I'm just curious, I know when you read our site, or the school district site, what it states. That information that we see, or if we were to pull up now, can you help me understand that information, meaning, I know it's a couple days. Is there a way of getting that information a little bit faster?
Actually, I think I could probably answer that one best. We've talked about that. We are looking at next week increasing the dates that we update the dashboard to now be Tuesdays and Fridays, and that'll pretty much put us in line with DHEC.
Yep.
Got it.
And also too, because of the recent changes in the quarantine timeframes and stuff like that, we needed to add that extra day in there. But when you go to the dashboard, that is the most current information at that point in time. So at 5 o'clock on Friday, or actually in this case, 5 o'clock on Monday, that was the active quarantines and active positive cases that are happening in the district at that moment. And that's a true picture of what's happening in the school. That means all those people you see on that dashboard will not be in school the next day or until their quarantine periods are over. So that's part of the reason we focused on that, is because that's the actual impact it's having. Somebody who has rolled off the dashboard and is not counted on there anymore because they're back in school. That's a teacher's back in the classroom or
Yep.
a student's back in the classroom.
Thanks, Joe.
So similar to the question, but do you plan on continuing to produce it after next week, or not again until the first week? Have you given that any thought
We still
yet?
need to look at that, because technically if somebody is not at school at that time,
Right.
they're
Hard to quarantine them when they're, yeah, okay.
They're not under our
We're
guide.
still talking about how we're gonna deal with the dashboard portion of it.
Okay.
Once they have fully finalized exactly how they want everybody to still report those cases.
So let's say I have a child who tests positive for COVID on, December 27th. So who do I contact? Knowing that on the 27th, they can't come back to school on the 4th. So as a parent, without anybody's personal cell phone, I email the district or email the school?
You would email the school administrator. I think that's what they've been doing on weekends.
Okay.
And then
So my request, since I can't make a request to these guys, my request to you would be that we just get something out to parents before we leave next Friday about
I think we planned.
what we want people to do. Just so they know where to go.
I think we had thought of it, right?
I figured you had.
that'll all be part of our enjoy your break holiday.
Okay.
Enjoy your break, here's the rules.
And a lot of people won't, maybe read all of that, and they'll contact the administrator.
I know.
Whoever anyway, but the administrators and the nurses have done a great job of, keeping us informed and communicating with us to make sure that we're updating our records.
Well, and I'm sorry that means that you guys are gonna have to be doing
I know.
stuff all break long, and including the administrators and the nurses and everybody else. Can I ask one more that Joe alluded to a second ago, DHEC changes that came out yesterday, day before, in terms of quarantine days? Can one of you talk about the changes to that in terms of our practices now?
Yeah, that was on the list too. Go ahead, Joe.
Actually, we'll turn that back.
We're gonna let Tamara, yeah.
Okay.
So the
60.
60, yep, I remember that.
I sent them the information.
That's more
Well,
than
it's the one you sent me, Gray.
On Monday, we were able to bring back out of quarantine 155 students.
Sweet.
I thought y'all told me 150, then you sent me the 60, so that was, okay.
Gray's just making stuff up.
We were able to change dates for an additional 110 students
To be able to come back sooner than they originally thought.
than they were originally
Okay.
anticipating. We were able to bring back 16 staff members, and we were able to change 10 staff members' dates.
And
Which
that's-
saved a whole week of school if you cumulated it all up or something.
And that's because of the 14 to 10 days from point of contact.
So from point of contact now, if you have a close contact, you are able, instead of the 14-day quarantine, you can now come back in 7 days.
Okay.
If you produce a negative test that was administered on the 5th day of your quarantine, from the date or after.
Okay.
Or if you decide not to test, you can come back on the 10th day.
Okay, so we are giving people the option with the 7 days, because I saw that Greenville was only gonna do the 10 days. They said that's just too complicated, so they're only doing 10 days instead of 14. So that's even better that we can do 7 days with a test.
So they have to test on day 5, have a negative test, and they can come back on day 7? Wonderful.
And I would like to add, we are updating all that information in the return to school guide. Quite honestly, we were kind of waiting for DHEC to officially put it on their website. They're dragging their feet, so we're gonna be sending that out more than likely before they get around to it. So, but we are updating that in all of our guidance and everything else, so people will have that full information.
And then they'll change their minds again.
I'm guessing you're gonna talk about testing.
I am.
So I'm not gonna ask you about it.
That's next. You can look at my notes. You're cheating. You're copying my paper, aren't you? All right, testing, as Christy mentioned, if you've been reading the paper, you know that the state received testing kits that are distributed to the schools if you choose to, school district, if you choose to participate. We have picked up our 10% first go-round of tests, and I brought those back from the superintendent's meeting, and we've been meeting as a group to decide if we would participate. And of course, the idea here is if we could test on site, and we can get schools and employees back quicker than outside testing. The primary idea. But there are some concerns about it. We've been telling parents to keep their children at home if they had symptoms. There's concerns about them coming to school sick or even positive and mixing in with the school population or sending kids to school just to be tested. We also looked at our nurses. We have one nurse per school. Pretty much their day's already jammed up, so that would be an amazing add-on to their day as far as time's concerned. So we're looking at participating, but we're thinking we're going to hire a nurse that would also become then the nurse for the middle school. And we've posted that, and we've got somebody interested. But we would set up, what we're thinking now is, we hadn't nailed down everything, we will set up an off-site tent, probably at the Catawba Ridge Stadium, where parents could drive their cars under the tent, where if it's raining, they can work out of the concession stand with heat and we'd have, I think that it was 3 staff members. You gotta have somebody y'all help me talk through the specifics. There was the nurse that would do the testing.
2 nurses.
Okay.
So, Dr. Mathiar said she would pull a nurse from another, she would basically have 2 nurses fully trained. We would bring in a sub-nurse at whatever school she pulls the other trained nurse, depending on what we see the volume. And then we were talking about having an officer there on site, and then a support person to help with kind of the logistics.
The paperwork and all that, because there's a
Yeah, 'cause
lot
you
of
gotta
reporting
wait.
that's gotta be
It'll
done.
take you 15 minutes to find your results, so we'll probably be calling you on the phone. You'll be parking in the parking lot, and
Right. Because the list of things you have to do.
We're gonna, we already have Sherry Hartley working on that, and she rattled off a couple people. When I talked to her, she said, oh, I think so-and-so and so-and-so might be interested. We were basically gonna offer that to
And we're talking about operating hours like 9 to 11 or 9 to 11:30 each day where, so you wouldn't conflict with the beginning of school traffic and the end of school traffic.
But the idea, as I understand it, is that a student doesn't come to school not feeling well, but at some point they're in school and they start not feeling well, or they're coughing and it's concerning to the teacher. And so they call the parent and say, your student, just like they would any other time, they go to the nurse.
You can either come to this or you can take them,
Right,
you know.
okay, and so then they would go over to this site, wherever it is, to confirm that it is not COVID. And if it is, we know that much sooner and can start the contact tracing, and if it's not, then depending on what the symptoms are, then they can come back to school the next day.
Right.
Okay.
That's our thinking right now.
And it could be a kid that, just doesn't feel well, felt bad overnight, and the parent doesn't know, and even if they don't come to school, they could call the school and call the district.
They could.
We'd set
Okay.
that up
They could.
and go get that test, because, I think the goal of the testing is to keep kids in
Results,
school,
right.
get them back to school as soon as possible,
Right.
and keep them away
And,
from other students.
and it's free, right? And it's
Yes,
free, so they would be able to come there. Because I hear a lot of people saying, I want to get tested, but the CVS appointments are not for 3 more days or whatever, so that's good.
And or I don't have insurance and it's gonna cost me $300, so I'm not doing it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Spittle, you have a router ready and all this other good stuff that's gonna be needed to be able to operate from said concession stand?
Yeah, we already have internet access.
Oh, good. Yay,
We're talking about, starting after the winter break, after the Christmas break, because we've got to get all this in place. We're already talking to the rental people about a tent. What was the other? Defender, about adding the security, yeah. And we've got cold storage out there, yeah.
So would staff have access to these testing too, right? So it's not just students, it would be staff members.
All right, what else you got?
Okay, well, along those lines, I was gonna get into, there was a question last meeting about, were we ready to go back into our outside rentals? We're looking at that. We were concerned because Tamar's still jam up. So if we do this, we were looking at a person, we would pay 20 hours a week and it wouldn't be Tamara because she's in the middle of this. We still have we're considering all options. We still have some concerns about the safety with the numbers going up. So I can tell you as a board, we're looking at it. We're not ready to pull the trigger yet, but we're reviewing it. We're studying it.
And you're talking specifically about the outdoor venues, like the
Right.
baseball fields, football fields, that kind of thing. We're
Right.
not talking about indoor rentals
Right,
at all.
just the outdoors.
Good.
So that was kind of the rentals, the testing, the plan itself. We got into the DHEC 7 and 10 days. Is there any, I was just trying to hit on all aspects of the return to school plan.
I got 2 more. I assume things are still moving forward with the plexiglass at the middle and high, and that'll be done over the holidays, and kids will come in and have shields around them.
Exactly.
And then, our next meeting is January 5th, which is right when we come back, so I know that's gonna be, tricky just from a materials and all that standpoint, but, sounds like since we will at least have some idea of what was happening over the holidays, case-wise and all that, we can talk about the January 26th and what it looks like, but I also, didn't you do, or I know you were going to do a survey of teachers about if they needed anything to feel more comfortable? Is that something we can also talk about on January 5th?
We have the survey data from that, and we can certainly talk about it at that point. Yeah.
Okay. That was all I had. Others?
Okay.
All right. We do have one other, actually, we have one other agenda item being, several of us attended a virtual South Carolina School Board Association Legislative and Advocacy Conference and Delegate Assembly on Thursday and Friday. I don't know if anybody wants to report out on any findings, learnings, anything of interest?
Well, it was nice that we had some different legislators this year
Yes.
to try to chat with. My feedback to SCSBA was that I would have liked to have had Mike Shealy's presentation on the financial stuff first, and then talk to the legislators, because there were points and pieces that he provided that would have been good to hold them accountable for and to. My personal takeaway from listening to them and whatnot was they, and not that it's new to us, we've been saying this for a long time now, but they, being the legislators, need to get together on the same page, and they need to make education a priority instead of talking about it being a priority and giving lip service and the rest of that. They need to show up, they need to show out, and they need to do their jobs.
So I had 3 takeaways. Molly actually talked about, COVID is still spreading, as you mentioned, the numbers are going up. They're going up a little bit in our schools too, but relative to the spread in the state and in the community, our schools are doing amazingly well. And I'm extremely proud of all the procedures that all the teachers and the staff and maintenance are taking care of, because the spread at schools is much lower than it is everywhere else. And so Molly gave kudos, and I would echo that. When the legislators talked, I wrote down that their priorities seemed to be the budget, what to do with Santee Cooper, vaccine plans, which would tell me it may be more of a legislative thing, and the economy. They talked a little bit about education, and when they talked about education, they talked about the step increase, ways to recruit and retain teachers, and they did at least indicate not being supportive of vouchers, which I thought was good, and the need for broadband. But again, kind of to Michelle's point, it did not feel like their number one priority, unfortunately, from what I heard.
And when they mentioned the step increase, they were very careful to say, you gotta just plan on doing it on your own. We're probably not gonna fund it. And I thought, geez, whiz.
And then the third thing being the Mike Shealy presentation that, like you said, was later. What I basically got out of it was that both GDP and jobs are roughly halfway recovered. There was the big dip and about halfway back, and that he felt like it was going to be a slow rest of the way through 2021. That was kind of my take from the whole thing. So it was a good session, and it was good to have a
Talk about
session.
the K recovery like we did in the fall.
Not as much though, because what he talked about was, that certain sectors are doing really well and others
Or plummeting.
The K.
Hospitality is still kind of tanked, which would stand to reason when you can't go to somewhere for dinner or whatever, that's gonna be the case. The other thing that I took away from them was there was once again the discussion about the 4K, but as is in true fashion, no discussion with regard to how they're going to fund it, how they're going to support it, and or what that really means in the real world, just more pie in the sky from them.
It certainly didn't feel like a next year topic.
Right.
I got the impression that they thought 2 to 3 years out on some of the bigger ticket
I'm not
items.
surprised.
Yep.
They were poised to take care of it until this happened, according to Representative Felder.
But it was a good session, and it was good to get back into the swing of focusing on the future and something other than just the day-to-day. So if there's nothing else, item number 13, we are in need of an executive session to receive personnel recommendations. If I could get a motion to move into executive session.
Motion to go into executive session for personnel, I think that's what we said, personnel recommendations.
All right, with that, we are in executive session. We thank everybody for joining us, and have a wonderful holiday.